My name is Ben Crawford and I am the host of the Monday show on the Blue Room, and this is my Everton 1-2-11. Obviously we start in goal, the number one jersey, and it's got to be Nigel Martin for me. I've got to tell the listeners before that I'm only including players that I've seen live and in the flesh of Goodison. Obviously I was born in '94, so technically Neville Southall was available then, and obviously we won the FA Cup with him as a key part of that the year after I was born. But I am, for the purposes of this little bit of trivia, I am only using players that I have seen live in the flesh. So Nigel Mart for me, I think Nigel was everything you want in a goalkeeper. Very composed, quite athletic despite his advancing years, and really, although it would be unfair to take that away from him, I don't think we've had a great stand of goalkeepers since. I think you've only got the likes of Tim Howard or even Jordan Pickford who even come close to vying for that jersey, but they were light years away from Nigel Martin. So Nigel Martin is my number one, and he's the goalkeeper in my team. In terms of defence, I think the full-back positions pick themselves. You've got Seamus Coleman, who's the best right-back I've ever seen in Everton, obviously, and Leighton Baines. Likewise, on the left-hand side, I don't think there's much that any Evertonian could argue with there, to be honest with you. I mean, I know Luca Dean's been very impressive, but Leighton Baines was so consistent for such a long period of time that he has to go in there as the full-back. And in terms of the right-back, again, Seamus Coleman, again, not much competition. Possibly maybe Phil Neville, although he was a much better captain than he was actually as a player. So Seamus Coleman all day long, Leighton Baines all day long, and that's the full-back positions all sorted. In terms of central defenders, obviously we've got Phil Jagielka in there as the mainstay. I think he's probably pound for pound the best central defender I've seen in an Everton shirt. He was very consistent, and I always wondered back to how it would have been a little bit different maybe had he not picked that awful knee injury up before the 2009 FA Cup final. Maybe we'd have won the final that day, maybe we wouldn't, but it took a lot out of his career. That took about 13 months or so for him to come back from injury. So Phil Jagielka goes in there for me, injury or not, because he was Mr. Consistent and he was a really good Everton captain as well. It's just a shame we couldn't win a trophy while he was at the club. And then his left-footed central defensive partner is Joleon Lescott. I know Joleon is a player who there's a lot of animosity towards because of the way he left the club, and despite the fact he went on to go and win trophies at Manchester City, it never quite felt as though at the time he was making the move for the right reasons. But I think, again, pound for pound, it's got to be based on ability rather than sentiments. I think ability-wise, Joleon Lescott was very, very close to Phil Jagielka. Not quite as good, I don't think, because I don't think he quite had the mental side of the game that Jagielka did, the reading of the play. But, he's a really powerful lad. He could play left-back as well, which he did, very well on a few occasions. But Joleon Lescott, for me, is his partner, ahead of others like Sylvain Distin, John Heitinger. But, despite the way he left the club, I think he's still probably the best left-footed defender that Everton have had in my lifetime. So he makes up a partnership with Phil Jagielka in my team, just as he did many times on the pitch for Everton. As we move into the midfield area, I think it's worth noting that I have gone with a 4-5-1 or a 4-2-3-1 formation, whichever way you look at it, because I feel as though that's the most common formation I've seen in my lifetime supporting Everton. It was obviously, very well recognised as David Moyes' go-to formation during the season. We finished in the top four, and I think, to be fair, Carlo Ancelotti now has toyed with that idea, albeit in a more expansive way, and I think he's used that formation so to grind out certain results and get victories that were more needed without that expansive style of play that I'm talking about. So we'll go with 4-5-1. In terms of me midfield, two in the middle, I've gone with Marouane Fellaini as the first player. I think he was actually more beneficial to the club when he was actually playing further forward. I remember Leon Osman once remarking that he wanted Fellaini as far away from your own goal as you could, because he was very clumsy, so you want him in the opposition area causing problems for the defenders. And I think a few elbows to that detriment that he threw in also make that case as well. But I think even as a central midfielder, it wasn't all about strength and getting in the opposition's face. He was a really good footballer. I think people forget that with Marouane Fellaini because he was a bit dirty. He did leave a foot in and he was physical. But you know what? He could play football. And I think that's one thing United maybe didn't quite get the most out of when he did eventually leave Everton, because he came to the country, to Everton, as a silky holding midfielder that many thought he would be. He didn't turn into that at Everton many times, but there were little glimpses and instances where when we had obviously Tim Kail, who we'll come on to in a bit, where they had to fit both of them in the same side, and the answer to that at first was Kail playing deeper and Fellaini further forward, but then vice versa as you go into sort of 2010, 2011. So for me, Fellaini very underrated as a footballer. I think he's got to go in that team as the first central midfielder, and then his midfield partner is Mikel Arteta, probably the most tidy footballer I would say that I've seen at Everton. Very, very talented, very silky skill, very good at set pieces as well. I mean, another one with Arteta, I actually always thought his best days were playing further forward, maybe to the right, maybe to the left, or even just up behind the striker. But again, different players we had in the squad, mitigating circumstances meant that we probably got the best out of him just before his big injury as well, when he was playing central midfield. And I think again he's another man that was missing from that 2009 Cup final, which could have potentially made a difference to the outcome of that match on the day. But he goes into my team, and certainly, based on the other players I've got there, be taking all the set pieces. As we move to the wings, left wing, I think it's got to be Steven Pinar. People are quite surprised when I talk about Steven Pinar away from the show, because I actually wasn't as big a fan of Steven Pinar as a lot of people were. I didn't think he had enough going forward in terms of his eye for goal. I didn't think he scored enough goals. I didn't actually get created that many. I think he was actually involved a lot more in the build-up play because of that relationship with Leighton Baines, which I'll come on to. But in terms of his actual goal output for a midfield, for me, he wasn't quite quick enough, and he did have limitations. But one limitation, or the limitations that he didn't have, was his relationship with Leighton Baines, which is exactly why I've put him in the team. So despite the fact that I've just torn him to bits there, the whole reason why he's in my team is because of that relationship with Leighton Baines. The two of them together were the best left-hand side pair in the Premier League for me for a long time, for a number of years. And I think that showed, especially when he did leave to go to Tottenham for a brief hiatus away from the club. When he come back, it was like nothing had changed, and he slotted straight back into that Everton side on the left-hand side on loan, and then permanently again. And I just don't think you get many combinations like that anymore. No, certain players play well together, but that sort of almost telepathic understanding that both of them had, really, for me, is why Pinar goes in his team. On merit alone and ability as a player individually, probably would just miss out. But given the fact I've got Leighton Baines playing further back in my 11, I think that link-up play could be very, very vital. So that's on that basis of his relationship with Leighton Baines, that's why he's in my team. The right-hand side was, I'll be honest with you, it was the biggest issue I had picking this team, because I don't think we've been blessed with many right wingers. I know a lot of people who will obviously take part in this kind of mini challenge we're doing will pick Andrei Kanchelskis, and I would probably go all for that. But as I've said earlier in the show, I think that I should only pick players that I've seen live. No, Andrei Kanchelskis came and left while I was, an infant, so I can't really justify putting him in the team. So it leaves me with very few options. But one option that I have taken up is to put Richarlison on the right wing. It's not his best position. Some say he's a left winger, some say he's a striker. I share that opinion as well. But I think if you're going to shoehorn anyone into the team and play them in a position they're not too familiar with, I think Richarlison is as adaptable as anyone. So Richarlison for me is the right winger, and I think you could even move those two around a bit, Pinar and Richarlison, and let them play on different wings and play off with the full backs. Because you've got Seamus Coleman as a good backup attacker on the right as well. So for me, Richarlison goes into that team, albeit in a slightly different position than maybe he's used to. In terms of the attacking positions, obviously I said at the top of the show I'm picking a 4-5-1. It's more like a 4-4-1-1 or a 4-2-3-1, reflecting on it now, because obviously the one player who I've got to put in as my fifth midfielder, but almost the reason I'm including him in sort of the attackers segment of the show is Tim Cahill. I mean, he was combative, in both boxes. He was a threat. He was just as good when you were holding on to a lead as when you were trying to gain a lead. I've never seen a player of his height and build really, show that kind of ability in the air. The way he jumps and the way that he got up above defenders who were twice his weight, twice his size, and also the way he used to get hit and kicked and pulled down, and he used to get straight back up, and he never complained. He always battled, and for those kind of warrior-like accolades that I've given him there, Tim Cahill is the first name on the team sheet for me. He's my favourite ever Everton player, until current day. So until somebody hopefully wins a trophy and scores a winner in a cup final and gets it through that. But at the moment for me, Tim Kail is my favourite Everton player. He's back at the club now doing his coaching badges, which is great to see, and I'd love to see him get a manager's job. But in terms of this team, he adds that extra bite up front, that extra man running into the box on the end of a cross. but he also gives you that solidity to help get back, help the defence, help the midfield, and for all those battling qualities, that's exactly why he's in the team. He's first name in the team sheet for me. And of course, there could only be one centre forward or striker, if you will. It's Romelu Lukaku. His goal record was insane, considering he played on his own up front in an Everton side that didn't always go gung-ho in attack. He was often some cautious Everton teams. I think when he burst onto team Roberto Martinez, I think he had free roam to do as he wished and to get on the end of chances. I think when Koeman come in, obviously Koeman only had him for one season, but I think Koeman turned Everton into an all-round more compact team, an all-round more practical side, which didn't work in the long haul. But in that season, he obviously got 25 Premier League goals plus. He didn't actually hold the ball up that well for a man of his size and his stature, but you just knew as soon as he got the ball he was capable, and that's, being capable of moments of magic like Chelsea in the FA Cup quarter final, the Goodison where he scored 2 absolutely fantastic goals. We don't win games like that without him. We didn't win games like that without him. And another player where it's really a shame that he never went on to win a trophy at Everton, albeit some might say that was kind of his fault with the semi-final against Manchester United in 2016, obviously missing the penalty, missed a absolute glut at chances really when he should have scored and should have put Everton out of sight in the game. So in a way it's a shame he didn't bring us a trophy rather than we didn't bring him a trophy. But look what he's gone on to, look at the level he's playing at. I'm sure he's Belgium's all-time top goal scorer as well. I mean, just a world-class striker, and he still is to this day. Romelu Lukaku absolutely walks into this Everton side. I don't think there's a single striker that can compete with him in that position, to be honest. In terms of my options off the bench, I've obviously picked the customary 4 substitutes. One goalkeeper, which will be Tim Howard. Again, almost more out of necessity than will, because I'm not really willing him to be a part of this Everton side. Never thought he was actually that good. I thought he was very suspect, and a solid back four in front of him let him get away with quite a bit more than other goalkeepers maybe would. But I think he's better than Jordan Pickford, or he was better than Jordan Pickford is now. So just on that basis, the only other goalkeepers we've really had were Bit Park goalkeepers, Joel Robles, Steve Simmons, and people like that who came in, did the job for a while, but never really stuck around with a decent run of form. Richard Wright was a decent goalkeeper, I think, until he fell out the loft, which is in very Everton style of his career. Soon plateaued after that. But the other 3 substitutes I've gone for Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan was a very, very, very good player. Basically, it's a shame that the Premier League only got a glimpse of his talents. I would have loved to have seen him come back to the club permanently in 2010 when there were rumours that we were trying everything, moving hell to try and get a fee accepted that summer to try and get him back. And although we came back for the one loan spell, obviously they're only 1-2 months at a time, and it feels as though there's so much more to come from Landon Donovan, and it'll always be sort of the one that got away from me, that. And I think when I was thinking about my right hand side, the right wing of this Everton side, and I was struggling, he was a name that propped into my mind, but I can't give him the place in the team over someone like Richarlison because of his lack of Everton appearances. But on his day, a brilliant player, and he'd be a brilliant substitute to bring over my team. Second substitute is Sylvain Distin. Again, someone who could maybe count as a little bit unlucky to miss out on the starting 11. I just think Joleon Lescott pipped him. I think Joleon Lescott was slightly quicker on the turn, and although he wasn't as quick, in terms of pace, I think Joleon Lescott just had a little bit more on the ball as well. Sylvain Distin, his distribution wasn't brilliant, but he was a brilliant defender, and he's very quick, and he was very dominating in the air. With Sylvain Distin, he's another player who I think I'd love to have seen him join the club maybe 3 or 4 years before he did. He was already in his 30s when he came to Everton, and I don't think we quite saw the best that was to offer for Sylvain Distin, but a really, really good defender, in his own right, despite that horrible mistake he made in Merseyside derby in 2012, which, albeit we've now forgiven him for, I don't think any Evertonian will quite get over that moment when the game seemingly was in our hands to throw away. And the final substitute that I've put in my side is Luca Dean, and that's kind of a reward for Luca Dean because he has really shown how easy, or not how easy it is, but he's really shown that you can replace world-class players like Leighton Baines. Leighton Baines, when he left the club, or when he was starting to decline, because he was still at the club when Luca Dean arrived, but Leighton Baines, I don't know how Everton thought they were going to approach this, because they were trying to replace a player that had been so consistent for a decade at in Everton starting 11, and England international as well. I thought what a real job Marcel Brands had at the time to try and get somebody in to understudy him, to replace him, and eventually dislodge him. But credit to Luca Dean, obviously it was an ageing Leighton Baines, but he took that on, took his place in the team, and he is the best left fullback we've had since Leighton Baines. So you could bring him on the left back, you could bring him on the left hand side wing. You know, it's just a real testament to how well Luca Dean's done this in this team, because it's kind of a reward for just making that left back position so little of a drama as it could have been when we were trying to replace a player like Leighton Baines. Well, that's been my 1 to 11 and my 4 substitutes. I'm Ben Crawford from the Monday Show on the Blue Room. Thanks very much for listening, and make sure you like and subscribe.